Unfortunate part of Pakistan is the military rules the nation. In the olden days, they used to say the three A's which are ruling Pakistan: America, Allah and Army. Pakistan Army was considered the savior of Pakistan. The only army in the world which has lost all the wars it has fought so far. I still remember people telling me, Toba, 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 Toba. जो गुर्बत है वहाँ पे. So they now know the reality of Pakistan occupied Kashmir and Kashmiri people under the rule of Punjabi Muslims. You know, it's not important to die for your country. It's more important that you make the other person die for his country. To make sure my nation wins. Problem Pakistan is facing is the ego, the military. That हम तो हिंदुस्तान के साथ हम व्यापार नहीं करेंगे. When G-20 is happening, I am very sure everything will go peaceful. But Pakistan as a rogue nation will not stop at anything to discredit India. The whole ecosystem was surviving on terrorism. They were not bothered किसका बच्चा मरता है, किसका बच्चा नहीं मरता है. They were only bothered that this thing should continue so that they remain relevant. मैम उन सब की दुकान बंद हो गई. Suddenly one fine morning on 5th of August 2019, shutter down.
Namaste, Jai Hind. Welcome to another edition of ANI podcast with Smita Prakash. Today I have with me Lieutenant General Dhillon. He is no stranger to the podcast. Thank you, sir, for being part of this show. If you haven't seen a podcast that I've had earlier with General Dhillon, he was one of the first guests on the show. And we had a very interesting conversation. His book was just about to come out then. And if you haven't read the book, please do read the book. If you haven't seen the earlier show, please do see the earlier show. We talked about his life and his career, his very illustrious career that he's led in the Indian Army. Now Lieutenant General is retired and leading a supposedly relaxed life, but not really. And do follow him on social media. He is very active on Twitter. We talked in the earlier episode about Kashmir, about his life there, about security situation. Today, General Saab, I want to talk to you about the situation in Pakistan, its impact that it could have on national security in India and this region. There's one section of our polity, of those who watch national security, who are thrilled with what's happening there and feel that Pakistan deserves this after all that they've done, after all that the Pakistan army has done to India, the implosion that is happening in the civil-military relationship, good that it's happening. There's another section which feels that hold your horses, it's not all that great because it could have a negative impact on India too. So with all the experience that you have had commanding forces in our borders, keeping our borders safe, could you tell me what is your reading of this?
Thank you, ma'am. And it's an honor again to be on podcast with you. Talking about Pakistan. Pakistan, like we all know, is an enigma. And a lot of people who talk about Pakistan, who observe Pakistan, who read Pakistan, they have their own views, as very rightly expressed by you. But as a person, I would like to believe a stable neighborhood, a peaceful neighborhood, a progressive neighborhood, and a very, very friendly neighborhood is in everyone's interest, may it be a mohalla, may it be a nation. Having said that, you use the words like Pakistan probably deserved it and things like that. Yes, ma'am, they have their internal issues. They have been a rogue state in the region. They have transported terror, they have transported narcotics, they have killed the generations in their neighborhood by terror and narcotics. In return, they also have suffered. Notwithstanding all that, we as an elderly neighbor, as a big brother, as a fifth largest economy, and after all Pakistan, and we share a lot of culture, history, traditions, language, commonalities are tremendous. We would like Pakistan to be stable country. Look at Bangladesh. It got formed out of Pakistan, and within few decades, it overtook Pakistan in a lot of things, including their GDP and economic indices. So Pakistan also needs to look inside and need to improve their management of their politics, their diplomacy, their military, and their economy. Unfortunate part of Pakistan is the military rules the nation. In the olden days, they used to say the three A's which are ruling Pakistan: America, Allah, and Army, and not necessarily in the same order. So the order of priority for these three A's keeps shifting. But what's happening in Pakistan now, with Mr. Imran Khan having been removed, Mr. Shahbaz Sharif having come in, Imran Khan arrested for a short while, he is likely to be arrested again. Then Mr. Fawad Chaudhry running out of his vehicle. Imagine a leader, the PTI workers, who protested in support of their leader Imran Khan when he was arrested. Thousands of them are in jail. And Mr. Fawad Chaudhry, another big mouth in PTI, who used to talk about Kashmir and who used to talk about jihad and talk about leadership and leading the men. He ran away when his own followers and all party men are in the jail. He does not want to go to jail himself, but only wants his men to go to jail. Same is true for Pakistan as a nation. All the military leaders, all the politicians, all the children are studying abroad. They don't want them to get into jihad. They want a common Pakistani son to die in Kashmir. They want a common Kashmiri son to die in Kashmir. And they want common innocent civilians to die in Kashmir. So this state is actually going down the drain. I always say there are 4 pillars on which you sort of rate a nation's standing: economy, diplomacy, politics, and military. Economy, we all know what state Pakistan is in, the type of debts and the CPEC money which they have to return. Diplomacy, no one stood with Pakistan even when Article 370 was abrogated. So much to talk about their diplomacy. Their politics, we just discussed what's happening, and their military. This is for the first time in Pakistan, a new chapter has been written. Till now, we were only limited to ye jo dahshatgardi hai, iske piche vardi hai. Now today, they are actually attacking the military installations. They are attacking the residences. They are attacking the military people. So this type of a thing to happen in a country like Pakistan, where military rules with an iron fist, was unheard of.
Going and attacking the corps commander's house, somehow the homes of anybody used to be sacrosanct, especially of the army, even in our own country, and especially of the army in Pakistan, used to be a zone that nobody ever went into.
Absolutely.
For them to attack that, and then when we saw the visuals, वहाँ से मोर चुरा के लेके जा रहे हैं, वहाँ से strawberry निकल रही है, all those things which are coming out has made the people very angry that this is the kind of luxurious lives that Pakistan army was leading or their generals were leading, while the people were suffering for, बिजली एक दिन आ रही है, 10 दिन में पानी नहीं है, आटे की किल्लत है. So this is the kind of, disparity between the army and the common people. This is something that has come out in the open now.
Absolutely, ma'am. I talked about Mr. Fawad Chaudhry being a leader and not standing by his men. Same thing. Pakistan army was considered the savior of Pakistan. The only army in the world which has lost all the wars it has fought so far. The biggest surrender after the Second World War in the history. 93,000 standing army with aircraft, ships, guns, tanks, everything with them, and still surrendered.
1971.
So this is the army, but they kept projecting as if they have won all the wars, including 71. I remember General Bajwa saying, वो तो civilians थे, बाकी सारे जो पकड़े थे, फौजी तो थोड़े थे.
And this is when there is visual evidence.
Visual evidence, there is a documentary evidence, ma'am. There are lists of people with the army numbers who stayed in India for so many years, had scotches and played golf. So, in spite of all this, they told their people, they even told their people they won the Kargil war, when they did not even claim the dead bodies of their soldiers. So, when that type of image was there, they were considered to be saviors. And when normal Pakistani, as you very rightly said, is crying for atta, is crying for water, is crying for bijli, pani, and normal rozmarra ki cheezein. And when they walk into a corps commander's house, and they see deep freezers full of strawberries and kormas and lawns, sprawling lawns with pigeons and peacocks and what have you.
And swimming pools.
And so then they realized, the common public realized, ये तो हमारे मसीहा बन के दिखाई देते थे. असल में तो ये मसीहा नहीं है. They have been looting the Pakistan country. Look at the pizza chains abroad. So all those things have now come out in the open, and thanks to the social media, thanks to the internet, thanks to the connected world, the truth is in front of the public now.
So the 3 A's that you talked about, which it used to be something that people would joke about, but there was a truth to it. So all three A's betrayed Pakistan, you feel? Or should a country or should a people of a country not rely on an outside factor? You should apni kshamta pe vishwas rakhna chahiye.
Ma'am, we became independent in the same time. Both the countries tried to build the base for themselves, self-reliance and what have we. Look at where India has come, in spite of our population, in spite of our internal fault lines. Whereas Pakistan was made on the theory of two-nation theory. That means there should not have been any fault lines within. We are a multilingual, multi-religious, multi-community society. We have grown so well, in spite of our fault lines, I am repeating this. Whereas that country, which was supposed to have no fault lines, has deeper fault lines as compared to us. The Shias, the Sunnis, the Ahmadiyas and what have you. They're fighting with each other, killing each other. So a country took a wrong turn. And courtesy is one of the A's, the army. Here in India, the army is subservient to the civil government, the democratically elected government. We have had elections, we have had change of parties at the center, at the state. Never have we had a case wherein someone has to be put in a jail or someone has to be dragged out of the office or someone has to run away into the court complex. So two countries, the maturity levels are different, our visions are different. For a country like India, our visions are 40 years hence. Their vision is starting and finishing at Kashmir. For us, Kashmir is just about one part of our issues. For them, Kashmir is everything.
You've been in Kashmir for so many years. You've been in a leadership position out there. Do you feel that they could, whatever their troubles, could they ever abandon their so-called Kashmir cause?
Ma'am, one thing which has happened after 5th of August 2019, that is abrogation of Article 370. Probably some Kashmiris had this feeling that if something major happens, Pakistan will always stand by us. Pakistan will always support us. Now when thing as big as Article 370 abrogation happened and Pakistan did nothing, could do nothing, that is when the bluff was called. Only thing which Mr. Imran Khan, that time Prime Minister said, 11 बजे धूप में खड़े होंगे शुक्रवार को. वो भी I think 1-2 दिन के बाद में खत्म हो गया. So what happened in Kashmir is today again, thanks to internet, thanks to social media. Ma'am, if I can take a little time, what happened in Kashmir was, 1990 was the time when Indian economy opened up and our household people started earning more. The multinational corporations came in, the jobs came in, and India started the growth path towards a better economic health. 1990 or 89, 88 was the time when terrorism came into Kashmir. So last 35 years, here is a country which is on the economic boom side, and here is a part of that country, the state of Jammu and Kashmir, which was on the downward trend because of terrorism perpetrated by Pakistan. Another thing which happened was when Kashmiri Pandits, I'll take one by one and then I'll come to the wholesome sort of outcome. The Kashmiri Pandits, when they were thrown out of Kashmir in 1989 and 90s, that is when the Kashmiri education system crumbled. Kashmiri Pandits were primary teachers, middle school teachers, higher secondary, university, and the schools in the far-flung areas were made of wood those days. Terrorists burned down those schools, saying that army stays in these as camps. So there are no schools, there were no teachers. The students could not get proper education. But the respective governments, or you can say consecutive governments, one after another, kept promoting these children without having gone to the school. Then came the Hartali Dor or the Hartals by Hurriyat. 280 days out of 365 schools used to be closed because on some pretext or the other, on some calendar or the other, the Hartal used to be called.
So we're talking from 90s, now you moved to the 2000s.
So I'm giving a total perspective of the whole thing.
Right.
So the students who did not have a school in the village areas, did not have good teachers, and even if they had teachers, had school, the schools wouldn't open. So the students kept getting promoted en masse when they came to 10th and 11th or 12th class. Now I'm talking from 90s to today. Now they had to compete for getting admission into a good college, into a professional college, into a civil services and all. Because they did not have the educational base, they could not compete. Now, since they could not compete, there was no future. As there was no future, the boy had no other option but to pick up a gun. So that was one aspect of social economic aspect of the terrorism. Another thing was, all the elections used to be boycotted by Hurriyat, supported by terrorists, sponsored by ISI and Pak Army. When all the elections used to be cancelled or boycotted, only very few percentage of votes used to poll. And these people who used to boycott used to allow those votes to be polled. And then their sympathizers would win. When they would come to power, this used to be a payback time. So all the lower level recruitment, may it be a spy in a constable in police, may it be a bank employee, may it be a primary teacher, may it be a junior revenue officer, they were all taken in on the recommendations of Hurriyat and Jamaat-e-Islami, because these people wanted to come back to power again after 6 years. So when that happened in 90s to today, all these people who got recruited, they are Jamaati Hamaitis, they are Hurriyat Hamaitis, today they are in the middle rung of lower bureaucracy. They are the munchis in Thana, they are the SHOs in Thana, they are the primary school headmasters, they are the patwaris. They are the people who deal with the public on daily basis. Now this is where the problem is. The IGP or the DCP or DGP or the SSP or the DC, how many times can these people go and meet with the public on daily basis? Public comes to the police station or Patwar Khana or school or bank and interacts with these people who are corrupted.
So whose sympathy lies with the Hurriyat.
Sympathy lies with the Hurriyat.
Even though Hurriyat's back is broken, it's not really broken actually.
Jamaati ideology is the most dangerous ideology.
Okay.
So this is how the child has not got good education, there are no job opportunities, there are no multinational companies, there is no investment, there is a bureaucracy which is corrupted.
And the reason why all this was not there is also because the Article 370 was there. Yes, so they couldn't buy property. Kaun aayega? Why would, say, a cafe coffee day or a barista or somebody come there? Because you can't hire your own people.
35A didn't allow this. 370.
Yeah.
And ma'am, this whole thing, all the political parties, kept quiet about it. And election after election, boycott after boycott. Today the situation is, it will take time to sort out these issues. Good thing is, it is being done. In my book, in the last chapter, I have covered the immediate steps which can be taken under 4 headings, taking inspiration from the Vedas, Sam, Dam, Dand, Bhed. Under these 4 headings, I have given immediately what can be done. And they're all doable things. Some things are being done also. So this socio-economic political cauldron for the last 35 years has created an ecosystem which benefits from terrorism. The ecosystem has Hurriyat, ecosystem has terrorists, ecosystem has ISI, ecosystem has Pak Army, ecosystem has certain politicians, certain NGOs and certain vernacular press.
Now, if that ecosystem flourished for several years, for decades actually, 90s se baat kare, so it flourished in Kashmir. Why did Pakistan give up on Punjab so quickly? If that experiment flourished in Kashmir, why did it not flourish in Punjab? The reason I'm asking that also is for viewers and listeners is this episode is being filmed in Amritsar in Punjab. So, there's a lot that people are saying that, Pakistan, when it didn't succeed in Punjab in the 80s, it moved its attention to Kashmir in the 90s. Now that is failing, so it's moving its attention back to Punjab. So tell me, why didn't it flourish in Punjab in the 90s?
No, it didn't flourish in Punjab because we are talking of now mid-70s to mid-80s.
Yeah.
Partition had happened just about 30 years ago. Or 27, 28 years ago. The people who had seen the atrocities of partition, people who were victims of the violence of partition, they were still in their mid-40s or 50s. They were still in the age group of being a parent. Today they are either gone or elderly grandparents. Yeah. So those days the elder people used to say, okay, don't fall for this. And that is the reason the 70s and 80s problem of Punjab did not flourish as it is, and then certain radicalization. And Punjab is a hard-working state, so is J&K. And Punjab is a very prosperous state. Anyone who was earning 1,000 rupees earlier, because of the terrorism, his income dropped to 500. So he saw no benefit in what was going on.
And there's no ideological connection between Pakistan and Punjab like there is between Pakistan and Kashmir to some
That's
extent.
what point I'm making. In Kashmir, the religious-based radicalization is what is keeping the movement going till few years ago. But today, the youngsters have seen the bluff. Today, they understand this cannot go on many far. Ma'am, I'll give you small examples. So many killings have happened in Kashmir. Local Kashmiris have died, local civilians have died, Kashmiri boys who joined terrorism, they have died, and some security forces, Kashmiri, at the hands of terrorists have died. Has this ecosystem, which I talked about, politicians, NGOs, even Hurriyat, the terrorist, ISI, have they ever asked the mother of a terrorist who has died, कि आप किस हालात में हो, आपका बच्चा क्यों मरा? Because mother is a mother at the end of the day. That mother will ask these people, my child died because you people brought in terrorism. If terrorism had not come, he wouldn't have joined terrorism, he wouldn't have been killed, today he would have been with me. Have they asked the poniwala or the rickshawala or the shopkeeper or shawl maker or the pepper mache maker that why your income has dropped from say 20,000 a month to 10,000 a month? Because tourists are not coming, because these incidents of innocent civilians killing. They will not ask, they will not question that, they will not speak about it because it does not suit the ecosystem. Why don't they speak about why the education system or education levels in Kashmir are not going up? Kashmiri is a very intellectual person. Kashmiri society is a very aware society. They are learned people, ma'am. They are poets, they are musicians, they are artists, they are, you name a intellectual field, Kashmiris are there. But the education system has been damaged so badly by terrorism, the ecosystem will not talk about it. Why there are no jobs? Because there is no education, because there is no education background, there is no investment in Kashmir.
You've been there for so long in Kashmir. Do you think that the Kashmiris are looking at what is happening in Pakistan and saying, we could have been them?
When I was a brigadier in North Kashmir in Handwara sector, and this bus from Srinagar to Muzaffarabad had started, and people could go across, and Pakistan occupied Kashmir, Kashmiris could come to Indian side, and this exchange, that was the eye-opener for them. Today, each and every child in Kashmir speaks Kashmiri. Whereas people in Pakistan occupied Kashmir, their brothers, sisters who are that side, the Kashmiri culture, it has been destroyed, the Kashmiri language has been destroyed. Punjabis have come in and they are ruling Pakistan occupied Kashmir based जो लोग हैं वहाँ के. Today Punjabi is the most spoken language there. Kashmiri language खत्म कर दी है वहाँ पे ताकि history culture ही खत्म कर दिया जाए. Whereas in our side, Kashmiri language is very well prospering. It's being spoken by everyone and it's a very much spoken language. So people used to go across to Muzaffarabad and come back. They used to come back, as we say, with their eyes wide open. I still remember people telling me, Toba, 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 Toba. जो गुर्बत है वहाँ पे हमने तो कभी सोचा भी नहीं था. So they now know the reality of Pakistan occupied Kashmir and Kashmiri people under the rule of Punjabi Muslimans of Pakistan. Now a Kashmiri doesn't want to be part of that.
Also the media, it never tells its people what is happening in POK, which they call Azad Kashmir. It never tells people what is happening in their FATA regions. The news from that region doesn't make it to it's only Punjab and that's it. And maybe a little bit about Sindh, if at all they go beyond Punjab. Rest of the places, nothing. There's no talk at all about what happens out there. So I want to come back to what you had said in the first answer to my question, where you said that India would want, or Indians should want, a stable region around here. But sir, you spent decades in the Indian Army and your adversary was Pakistan. Today you're seeing the same Pakistani army officers getting a bloody nose. What is that feeling? Is it a feeling that, okay, वो दुश्मन मुल्क है, वो दुश्मन मुल्क की फौज है, अच्छा हुआ जो उनके साथ हो रहा है? Or does it feel that he's a uniformed soldier, this shouldn't be happening? What is the sentiment?
As a professional soldier, when I'm on the border, there are no holds barred. The person across the line of control or the international boundary, as the case may be, is an enemy. He is fighting for his country, I am fighting for my country. I will leave no stone unturned. Sam, Dam, Dand, Bhed, Sab Shamil. To make sure my nation wins. And in doing so, as George Patton had said, it's not important to die for your country. It's more important that you make the other person die for his country. So when I am on the border, when I am a soldier, I am very clear. When I am in a counter-terrorist operation, I am very clear what I have to do. Now, sitting as an observer and talking about at a national level or an international or regional level, that is when I make this point. Stable region is in, you can say, favor of everyone, including the great country like India. Talking about what happened to the Pakistani senior officers in the recent protests which happened, ma'am, jaisa boge, वैसा ही चुनोगे. This country was ruled by army and the type of corruption which they carried out. Public could not speak because the establishment or the deep state did not allow the media to bring these things out. Public का जो अंदर का गुबार था ना, मैं वो, it was at a pressure point, tipping point. And once the lid was blown off, that is what happened. So, I have no respect for anyone who has looted his nation, who has looted his country, because of whom the public is dying of hunger and they are with strawberries and whatnot and whatnot.
So also it's an army that didn't just fight a uniformed soldier across the border when he wanted to. He sent proxies. He started sending drugs across the border, which he continues. Today, as we are recording this in Amritsar, heroin has been dropped. Several kilos of heroin has been dropped via drones on the border. They have made our frontier state of Punjab, the youth of this state, they have broken the back of the youth of the most prosperous state, or the youth which goes into the army, which goes into our forge. They have broken the back of that. On what basis would I want that country, as a citizen of India, to be strong? This is the kind of evil that the army does. It's not, I can understand if the soldier is fighting a soldier, that's his job. But this is through these wrong means. This is not through rules of engagement.
Absolutely, ma'am. Even when there is so much of turmoil inside Pakistan, the one thing which Pakistan is not leaving is their anti-India actions. You talked about drugs being dropped. And similarly, you made a point, why should I want a country like Pakistan to be strong? I'm saying I don't want Pakistan to be strong. I want Pakistan to be stable. Okay. Let them get down to the rules of engagement. Let them get down to the way decent nations behave, the way good neighbors behave. It's not that every neighbor is very prosperous, every neighbor is very strong. We have different type of people staying in mohallas and neighborhood. But only thing is, you should not be a rogue nation. This is what Pakistan has come to today. Today somebody just now was asking, Pakistan is a rogue nation. I said, no, Pakistan is not a nation. As of today, it's only rogue. So this is how Pakistan is being looked at, and they must take this seriously. Their standing in the world as a nation, as a respectable country, has taken a big hit, they being the fountainhead of terrorism in the region and the narcotics. And now this unrest, which multinational company would come to do a business in a nation like this where they don't even know, like Honda, that Audi car showroom was burned down.
And the Audi car showroom apparently is owned by the son of a Fauji also. Yes. So that's why the anger
everything
towards...
Everything is owned by Faujis there.
Everything is owned. And in fact, the whole joke which many Indians don't know is that they say, Pakistan army ne plotistan bana diya Pakistan ka, because they cut up lands and make plots for the senior officers as they retire, so that the system continues of corruption by that Pakistan's military jihadi complex. To come back to the question that I asked you about Punjab being a frontier state, and how dangerous is this for for the states of Punjab, Rajasthan, for Kashmir, even for Gujarat, all the frontier states, all those which share a border with Pakistan, how dangerous is it in terms of national security?
Ma'am, the Western Front, as we call it in the army, starts from Kashmir, goes down right up to Kutch, and then the sea coast starts. It's a very sensitive front. All the wars which we have fought, starting with Kashmir to Kutch, the actions have taken place. So Indian security forces or Indian security establishment is well aware of this. We are geared up. We have the peacetime border guarding forces. We have the reserve forces, defensive forces, and we have the further reserve, the offensive formations. So we are catered for all eventualities. We carry out our war games. We carry out in-house discussions of all eventualities, not only pure war. We carry out our discussions and war games on hybrid type of warfare. We carry out an all two-front war, 2.5 front war. We do all this. It's an evolving thing. And we keep our powder dry. We keep our forces ready. So nothing to worry on that aspect. The Western Front, even the Northern Front, we keep doing the rebalancing as per the evolving situation. And we do the long-term plans of 15 years, 20 years hence. What would be Pakistan's capabilities after 15 or 20 years? We cater for that and we start building for that.
So my question also has another dimension to it, that it's not just a military conflict I'm talking about, but what if civilians, by hundreds of thousands, trying to escape from the trap of poverty which it is happening now, from absolute civilian unrest, if they start coming across the border, is our army going to fire on civilians? What do we do? How do we stop that influx if they just run away? Because जाएंगे कहाँ? एक तरफ Afghanistan है. It's not as if it's a hunky-dory situation out there. They can't go to Afghanistan. Down below is south. When they go south, there is the ocean. So they can only come east, which is India. So what does one do?
Same thing happened in 1971 Bangladesh Liberation War. Lot of refugees came into Indian side, and United Nations Human Commission for Refugees also works in this. I am very sure the people who are responsible for these are looking at this type of eventualities. From the military man's perspective, this eventuality is sub part of a contingency. Okay. Wherein we have a conflict and at the same time we have influx of civilian refugees. Under no circumstances any professional army will fire at unarmed civilians. That having been said, all actions will be taken to make sure no unwanted, unwelcome person is allowed inside the territory of India. So there are contingencies, there are forces earmarked for it. This eventuality is catered for in all the plans. And I'm very sure at a higher level, at the political level and at the government level, this must be getting looked at on regular basis, because the situation in Pakistan is so volatile. But hopefully that day may not come.
Because it's also there that their land is becoming untillable. There is a water problem. They have no plan in action. They used to have the best irrigation for their lands in Punjab, but that irrigation system doesn't exist. There is lack of, the agriculture system has failed out there. So when that has failed, the education system has failed, the civilians don't have the basics that they need. And now they're looking at the army as the villain. First time ever the army is seen as a villain. Do you think at some point of time the civilians are going to put pressure on their own army to make amends and to reopen ties with India? Do you think that will happen?
Ma'am, reopening ties with India, economics will drive it. Because it makes economic sense to pick up a loaf of bread from the neighborhood bakery, then go 20 blocks away and pick it up through a third party, which would cost 5 times more. So if Indian cotton is going to Pakistan via Dubai, definitely it will cost more because the transportation, the overheads increase. So it's economic sense to pick up all the stuff from the neighboring country. And here India happens to be the big neighboring country because of our tropical weather, because of all round the year availability of things in India. And we have stuff available which grows at high altitudes and which grows in island territories. So variety, someone other day asked me why Indians don't prefer tinned food. I said, हमें तो पूरा साल कुछ ना कुछ fresh मिलता है. So why should we go for a tinned food? So similarly, we are a country which can provide everything round the clock. So it's a natural economic sense.
Right.
to deal with India. Now, what problem Pakistan is facing is the ego, the military, that हम तो हिंदुस्तान के साथ हम व्यापार नहीं करेंगे. नहीं करोगे तो मत करो भी, तुम्हारा नुकसान है. But in the long term, I think the point you are making is they will be forced to stop terrorism, because time has now come when world will not take it lightly. World will tell them now directly, and they are a nuclear state. The whole world security watchers must be sitting on their haunches, seeing these visuals on television. What happens if some nuclear assets fall into hands of public or some rogue elements? So these things cannot be
seen in isolation as such.
Yeah, seen in isolation.
Yeah.
The wholesome game of Pakistan has to be understood.
So if you would say that, and at the same time look at Bilawal Bhutto. He came to India. He's a person who has lived most of his life abroad, not in Pakistan. He has not experienced or seen the pitfalls of living, or jo gurbat ki baat aap kar rahe the. The growing up in a, he's had an elite upbringing. Though he lost his mother to machinations, establishment. Though he tried to say here when he came to India that it was because of terrorism. His mother didn't die because of terrorism, died because of the establishment. He's somebody who's educated abroad. He should be able to see what is in the good of Pakistan. And yet when he came here, he kind of issued a veiled threat to India. When he said, jab G-20 ki baat ho rahi thi, he said, main jawab dunga when the time is right. That was a veiled threat.
Yes. Again, taking the example of Mr. Fawad Chaudhary. There was a time when Pakistan Army ke na gun-gan kar rahe the.
Correct.
And then he's running away from the Pakistan Army. Similarly, in 2001, Mrs. Bhutto, Bilawal's mother, she spoke about Pakistan Army and the ISI. She very clearly and categorically said, I think it was a BBC program, where she said the ISI is interfering with my ministers, with my members of parliament, and trying to buy them off and tell them to protect, defect against me. He says the ISI is literally blackmailing the judiciary, the judges, and they're interfering with the establishment of the courts. This is Bilawal's mother saying. And things haven't changed. The ISI hasn't changed. Only thing, it has become a little more stronger ever since in 2001 when Mrs. Benazir Bhutto said all this. And Bilawal knows all this very well. So Bilawal is doing Fawad Chaudhary of few months ago.
Or is he trying to protect his bases कि अगर इमरान खान को हटा देते हैं, he is seen, and अगर if the Sharif brothers are not an option, then he is the third option, the fallback option. Because जब तक army नहीं select करती, तब तक you can't become Prime Minister of the country.
Absolutely, ma'am. He is keeping his options open. And he is not wanting to be a fall guy. As of today, he just wants to play along with the establishment and the deep state. And that is what is my reading. And you never know what happens in the future.
So G20 के जो events होने वाले हैं कश्मीर में and in India, do you see any threat to that by Pakistanis, that they would want to sabotage, because they can't let it go peacefully in Kashmir, because their entire narrative would fall flat, that Kashmir is returned to normalcy, that the people of Kashmir want G20 to succeed, and the foreign dignitaries who come will see Kashmir prosperous. So it means decades of hard work that they have done in Kashmir unravel.
Absolutely, ma'am. When 370 was abrogated, Pakistan built a false narrative or a propaganda that there's a lockdown, there's a clampdown, no one is moving out. And that is when the foreign diplomats, high commissioners and ambassadors came to Kashmir in 3 different groups. I personally briefed them on the security situation in addition to the civil administration, and they were made to drive through Lal Chowk. They saw with their own eyes how peaceful and calm everywhere. In fact, the German ambassador at that time, he in fact wrote in a newspaper that I saw no lockdown. In my book, I have given the cutting of that newspaper and put it in the book as a photograph. So even that time, the Pakistani propaganda of lockdown was seen through by European Union members of parliament, high commissioners, including ambassadors of USA, UK, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand, other countries, in addition to other countries. So now, when G20 is happening, and it's a good thing the government has decided to hold some events in Kashmir, and they will see for themselves how peaceful Kashmir is. Having said that, Pakistan retains the capability to carry out isolated terrorist acts against innocent civilians. So Pakistan will do everything in its power to sabotage, I may not use the word sabotage, or to bring to limelight the terror activities in Kashmir so that Kashmir comes to the news. The security forces, the civil administration, the government is making all arrangements, taking all precautions, and I am very sure everything will go peaceful. But Pakistan as a rogue nation will not stop at anything to discredit India or to not to highlight the Kashmir issue by acts of terror, pure terror against innocent civilians.
So I had Sushant Sareen on the show a couple of weeks back, and he was saying that India has to be prepared, that like Israel is, India has to be prepared that we are going to be in a constant state of conflict with Pakistan. Not maybe a declared war, but they are never going to accept or be at peace with India. So somewhere in the Indian mindset has to be ready and accept that situation.
Sushant is a good friend. I would like to look at it in a more optimistic way. West Germany, East Germany united. Today they are a very strong nation in the European Union. I am not looking at India, Pakistan uniting.
Thank you.
But
because you just got me very worried when you were saying that. I said, ये conversation किस direction में जा रहा है?
I am looking at Pakistan having learnt its lessons, the world, you can say, telling Pakistan to stop this nonsense at some stage in the future. Interim period, I agree with Sushant, we might have to live with that. But I think at some stage, more sensible people will come and Pakistan would become a stable state. And this is a wish and a hope. So I look forward to a very positive things to unfold in the future. And otherwise, Pakistan has gone down quite a bit. Going further down would be doomsday for Pakistan.
Right. So we're having this conversation after your book has been published. The earlier episode was done before the book was published. And there were many conversations which you have written in the book, which you didn't mention there. You said, jab kitab niklegi, tab pad lena. So there was one in which you spoke about the conversation with Amit Shah. And this you didn't speak in the earlier podcast because आपकी किताब में आने वाली थी. In which you said, अगर इतिहास लिखना है तो किसी को इतिहास बनाना पड़ेगा. That conversation, when you talked about Article 370, you must have had several conversations with the political leaders at that time. They must have asked you, what is it going to happen? When I asked you about this, when we did the podcast, you said that these conversations, which you told me off the record, you told me at that time that these conversations happened in very secret locations, you said. So tell me a little bit about these conversations.
Ma'am, this was on 26th, 27th of June 2019. Approximately 40 days prior to abrogation of Article 370 on 5th of August, the same year, Shri Amarnath Ji Yatra was to commence on 1st of July. And Honorable Home Minister's visit to Kashmir, Jammu and Kashmir, happened on 26th and 27th of June. About few days, 4-5 days before the commencement of the Shri Amarnath Ji Yatra. So 26th June, there was a normal review of the security situation, other civil administration aspects, meeting with some political delegates. So in which everyone who's who of the J&K administration was there. I was there as a corps commander. So these meetings, the last meeting of security situation finished at about 11:30, 12 in the night. So there was a general officer whose birthday was there that day. So then I went to wish him to his house, had a piece of cake, came back home by about 12:31. At about 2 o'clock in the night, intervening night of 26th and 27th June, I get a call that tomorrow morning, 7 o'clock, there is a breakfast meeting with the Home Minister. I said, okay. 3 o'clock, I get another call that Home Minister wants to know that what would you like to have for the breakfast. I said, jo sab khayenge, wo main bhi khaunga. They said, no, it's a one-on-one meeting and only you and the Home Minister will be there. Now that is when I got a little this thing. Anyway, 7 o'clock went for the meeting. There was a dhokla, there was aloo ka paranthas, there were all types of things. And on more serious note, then we started discussing. Home Minister had come very well prepared as to what all the questions or the answers he is looking for. he talked in great detail about if we do something, that time still I was not sure, if we do something, what can happen? What can happen in the internal situation? What can happen in the security forces, some local security forces? What can happen on the line of control? What are the options with Pakistan? How the civil unrest can happen? Because if you remember, some former chief ministers had said, खून की नदियाँ बह जाएंगी, तिरंगे को कंधा देने वाला कोई नहीं होगा, mutiny हो जाएगी. So all these issues were discussed, and as to what can, and all contingencies were also discussed. What if this happens, then how will we handle it, and what is the upper level of violence which can happen, and other things. So finally, to cut the long story short, finally he asked me, so जिम्मेवारी किसकी होगी? मतलब who will be responsible if? I said, sir, I assure you, nothing will go wrong. And then I made a statement which you referred to. I said, sir, अगर इतिहास लिखना है, तो किसी ना किसी को तो इतिहास बनाना पड़ेगा. You have to make history or create history to write history. So he appreciated this phrase, and that is when I got back, and then we started working for the preparations which I had written in great detail in my book. So this meeting with the Home Minister, which was one-on-one, and after this the preparations had to go on to maintain peace. At the same time, the maintain confidentiality of what's coming. I always say only 2.5 people in Kashmir knew what's going to happen.
So this meeting was just one-on-one, you and Amit Shah ji?
Ji,
there was no note taker?
No, nothing. Nobody else was there. Only the two of us.
So, isme a couple of things I want to ask you is that, one, what gave you the confidence to tell him that leave it to me or whatever? I mean, security forces. Yeah. It'll be their responsibility. One, what gave you that confidence? Two, did you ask him for numbers? Like, did you tell him, I want this for it to be peaceful? Itne log chahiye, itne men chahiye, itne ammo chahiye, jo bhi chahiye. Did you give him a wish list of what you wanted? Three, I'll remind you of this incident which from my memory, which I remember, Indira Gandhi is supposed to have asked Sam Manekshaw as to when we can attack, and he told her not for the next 6 months. Yes. Because of weather, because of various operational reasons, and she wanted it done then and there, but she had to wait because her chief said it's not ready. They're not ready for it as yet, and she had to wait for it to happen. So these three things I wanted to ask you: confidence, what was your wish list, and three, did you give a time frame or did you tell them to give you a time frame?
Now, first of all, the confidence. I written about it in the book. There are a lot which happened prior to this meeting of 26th June. The killing of Zakir Musa, and between 26th of June and 5th of August, Zakir Musa got killed in last week of May. And the way as team security forces, which includes Army, JK Police, CRPF, intelligence agency, civil, we handled the situation so well. When the encounter was going on in the night of Zakir Musa, by morning first light, we were in control of things, and nothing happened. Like Burhanwani incidents and all that. And then few things happened between 26th of June and 5th of August, which again were a trial run for if something goes wrong. So my confidence grew from the way team security forces had been carrying out operations in the last few months, and the way we have been handling all the spark points or the flash points in total unison and total coordination. So that was one. Now coming to the wish list. Ma'am, everything was discussed on the line of control on the internal side. So there are no wish list. In fact, I gave assurance nothing will happen. At least I, from the Army's point of view, I am quite capable of doing things from within. And don't worry. I gave a time frame, a timeline of say number of days or number of weeks, which I will not have to ask you for anything. So that was the second part. And third is the point which you made of the timelines, and you referred to General Sam Manekshaw, later Field Marshal Manekshaw. In fact, at one point the discussion came out that everyone is recommending we do it in the winter months, so that the snow will be there, passes will be closed, Pakistan won't be able to do anything. I had a different take on this. My take was, if we do it in winter months, till then the confidentiality may not be maintained. So Pakistan would come to know. Secondly, in the winter months, the 3-4 months as it is remain peaceful because of snow, then we will get complacent and Pakistan will get time to prepare himself. My view was we do it earliest, have 3-4 months of campaigning season as we call it. If something has to go wrong, it will go wrong. Then we will have 3 to 4 months of winter time.
When it's hard for Pakistan.
When it's hard for Pakistan to pursue with the whatever they've achieved. For us to consolidate, reassess the situation and reallocate our assets. And then we come back fresh in month of April. So my thinking was different than other inputs. I wanted it earliest. Take 3-4 months up to December. See the situation. Then reassess, reallocate. Then during winter months consolidate. And fortunately they took a decision, the government took a decision to do it on the 5th of August. And things fanned out as it is. Not a single civilian casualty for the 3 months post 5th of August at the hands of security forces. The most peaceful 3 months in the history of Kashmir terrorism of 33 years. So that is where we are very clear, and this is how the senior leadership, when they take decisions, they take inputs.
Did you meet with Farooq Abdullah after that when he said this ki khoon ki nadiyan bahengi and there's no way that Kashmir will stay with India if it was ever to happen? Did you meet Farooq Abdullah after that?
Ma'am, I have met Dr. Farooq Abdullah Sahab on various occasions, mostly on social occasions, like Iftar party or Governor Sahab. I had thrown an Iftar party in the Corps headquarters, and Farooq Sahab came. He attended that Iftar party as my guest. So I have been meeting Dr. Abdullah on numerous occasions. But after 5th of August, we didn't meet.
You didn't. Do you think that the political establishment of Kashmir, it came as a shock to them that the kind of life that they have led, the kind of lives that they have led is over after this day?
Not only the political establishment.
Hurriyat also.
The whole of ecosystem. Which I talked about. The whole ecosystem was surviving on terrorism. They were not bothered kiska bacha marta hai, kiska bacha nahi marta hai. They were only bothered that this thing should continue so that they remain relevant in whichever field they are. They may be authors, they may be journalists, they may be NGOs, they may be Hurriyat, they may be OGWs. They just wanted to remain relevant. Ma'am, un sab ki dukaan band ho gayi. Suddenly one fine morning on 5th of August 2019, shutter down. सबसे ज़्यादा तो तिलमिलाए ये लोग हैं ना. Normal Kashmiri is very happy. They are getting out of the shackles of this ecosystem.
Right. And it's become an aspirational society in Kashmir. Rest of India was moving towards that 20 years back or 30 years back when reform started. But Kashmir was not, as you mentioned. But now you're seeing Kashmiris also having that, when beauty parlors, movie halls, music, theatre, everything opening up. It's becoming, that part of Kashmir which there was no sound post evening, that is changing. Or jo, that har bari shanakt parade ho rahi hai civilians ki, that era or those generations of Kashmiris will see a different kind of a life.
Kashmiri is a very, very wonderful person. कश्मीर के तो मैम झरनों में म्यूज़िक है, कश्मीर की तो हवाओं में जिसको कहते हैं कि खुशबू है. So he was deprived of all this goodness of nature which were bestowed upon him because of this terrorism. So on 5th of August 2019, a common Kashmiri saw a ray of hope and a good future for his child.
In your book, since we didn't discuss the book in the earlier podcast, you've written about an incident which happened, a close shave that your cooks, when they misidentified you and wanted to shoot at you. Can you tell us about that, those who have not read the book?
Well, there are a lot of anecdotes in the book, real life anecdotes, which tell you a lot of stories, a lot of lessons. Some of them are serious, some of them are funny. This one happened, ma'am, now we can say it's funny, but that time it was serious.
I can imagine.
So this happened in 1999, immediately after Kargil operations, and I was a major in Lolab. And I was senior major. Commanding officer had gone on leave, so I was the officiating commanding officer. A young captain had joined. I was in a Rashtriya Rifles unit. A young captain had joined, and he was posted in a company in South Lolab. Devar is the name of that village. So I thought I must go to that post, speak to this young boy, tell him the do's and don'ts and the situation myself, because I was a senior major. So this would put him at ease. So I walked to that post with my, we call it quick reaction team or the QRT, basically the protection team. So when we reached there, and their normal, sir chai pio, sir biscuit, I said, no, first to tell us what is our location. What is our location in case something happens in the night. Those were the days of Fidain.
Okay.
Fidain attacks had just started. So I said, no, first to give us, if something happens, someone tries to enter the camp, where we all will be. So once that was established, that is where all the people would be going in case something happens. I came back to my room, I changed, I was wearing a Pathani suit as a night dress. And suddenly at about 11 in the night, the fire started. The terrorists started firing on the post, and everyone ran to the place wherever they were supposed to go. I picked up the weapon, I ran to place where I was supposed to go as commanding officer. When I was going past the cookhouse, I heard someone charging the weapon or cocking the weapon. I heard some sound. And I realized that I hope that person is not trying to fire at me, because I was still in a Pathani dress. So I ran back to my room. I put on the combat trouser and combat jacket on top of the Pathani suit, went to my place of where I was supposed to and controlled the operation. And fortunately, nothing happened. We could, look after the terrorist fire. Now the biggest thing was to check if any terrorist has entered the post.
No, but when you went in the Pathan suit, didn't you have a pug on?
No, at the night I didn't have a pug on. I had a Afghani cap on.
Okay.
There was an Afghani cap which I had captured when I was a captain from a terrorist hideout.
Oh my God, you were completely... I don't blame that guy. I don't blame him.
So I was wearing that Afghani cap, woolen cap, and my Pathani suit. So that cap is still with me. So when we were checking if some terrorist or Fidain has entered the post. So everyone was saying, sir, all okay, checked, all okay. And then when I came closer to the cookhouse, I saw some schmozzle there. And when I went there, the cook was saying, nahi sahab, terrorist has entered the post. He said, I have seen, ye 6.25 foot ka Pathan, ye daadi, ye Pathani suit, haath mein ek ke. He said, sahab, meri to rifle nahi cock hui nahi, to maine to maar liya hota.
Oh my God.
And that is when I told him, I removed my jacket and I removed my trouser, my Pathani suit was still there.
Hundas?
I said, Hundas. And he said, yes, sir, aap hi the. So, ma'am, this is what happens. In the heat of the moment, can't blame anyone.
Friendly fire, as they say.
Friendly fire is the most accurate fire.
Yeah.
Enemy's fire may not be accurate, but friendly fire never misses the target.
Yeah.
This is a saying in the army. Friendly fire is the most accurate fire.
Yeah. We discussed about Operation Ma in the podcast. We talked about that. I also need to know about what that meant to you, because in that podcast you said there's a personal reason why that was very important to me. I didn't probe at that stage, but obviously you were referring to the role played by your mother in your life. Could you tell me a little bit about that?
Yes, ma'am. When that podcast was shot or released, that time the book had not come out, and I have never discussed the aspect of my mother with anyone. Even in the army, in my unit, hardly one or two people would know the background. My mother, when I was 3 years old, my father was posted to Nepal, and they were going on a morning walk. They were attacked by a wild animal. That wild animal was almost killing my dad. My father still has wounds on his neck, his wrist, his ankle. And that is when my mother, she was 5 feet 8 inches tall. She took her shawl off, squeezed it around the neck of the animal and literally killed that animal. And then she also had some injuries because the animal pounced back. And those days, Nepal was not very well connected. So from Gorakhpur, the injections were taken in a thermos. Somehow the ice melted or something happened. Those injections got bad. And those injections had a reaction. And we lost her after about 35 days in January 1965. So I was not even 3 years old then. So she was given the name Sher Marma. So I'm very proud of her. Like in the army, we say she died with her boots on. So I always took strength from her. if she can fight an animal, I can fight anyone, may it be terrorist or the enemy. So I always had this, and when, of course, everyone loves the mother, mother loves children. So as a young kid, when I was a captain, not as a young kid, as a young captain, every time we killed a terrorist, there used to be a letter in his pocket, like I said last time.
Yeah.
Where either the letter has been written to the mother, he has not posted, or mother has written the letter back. So I realized the Kashmiri society, the role of mother is very important. Every society it is important, but Kashmiri society definitely more. So we started this Operation Ma when I was a Corps Commander. We approached the mothers and we told them to get through to the children who have picked up the weapon, terrorist mothers. And we got more than 50 boys back from the terrorist tanzeems. And those boys are happily living today. And they are with their parents. They are doing different types of jobs. And in this whole operation to be successful, there are three main ingredients. The personal assurance was no police case would be made out against them. Second was their identity will be kept secret. And third was they will definitely be placed in some alternate job based on their qualifications. We are sitting in Amritsar. Some of them are working in Amritsar as of today.
Okay.
And some of them are still in touch with me.
And their past identity, nobody knows.
Nobody knows, ma'am. Nobody knows what happened. And most important point is, ma'am, as a soldier, it's very easy to kill a terrorist. But most difficult job is to get the terrorist back. Ma'am, जान लेना मुश्किल नहीं है आपके पास में अगर हथियार है तो. किसी की जान बचाना. Probably I think it is a job next to the God.
You lost your mother when you were 3 years old, you said. You know what it is like not to have a mother. You know the loss of losing a parent. You also, because you were posted in Kashmir, you also know the pain of the mothers. And you did mention in the podcast about, how, and today also you mentioned about how these politicians who are making money and who were the entire ecosystem who survived and thrived on conflict, who did not become part of that grief that people suffered. So there is a kind of a personal aspect to every soldier who's posted out there, isn't it? Who brought you up, sir, when you lost your mother at 3, and what motivated you to join the forces?
Ma'am, my grandmother, my Nani ji, very brave lady. She brought me up and she taught me all the values, including maar kha ke वापस नहीं आना school से.
अच्छा.
She would take me back to the school and say कि जिसने भी पीटा है तेरे को उसको जब तक पीट के वापस नहीं आया घर में आने की जरूरत नहीं है. So that brought in the little soldierly qualities, and she brought me up. She taught all the value system, how to respect a lady, how to be, respecting the seniors, how everything, man. In my life, I owe it to my grandmother, and that is the first acknowledgement I make in my book. The 4 beautiful generations of beautiful women in my life. My grandmother, next is my mother, God bless her, and next is my wife, and 4th generation is my daughter. They all have played a very important role in my life, in grooming me, in mentoring me, in coaching me, in guiding me. My daughter till today finds faults with my pronunciation, the way I dress up. So
I hope she's happy with this episode when it comes out. But you did mention about your wife and how it's the role played by Fauji wives. Many, there are books which have been written by many of the wives. The enormous contribution that wives of serving officers, not just officers, even of JCOs, NGOs, even they, the work that they do in keeping the home and hearth alive, in looking after families whose men have died on the lines. This support structure is extremely important in the services. Could you tell me a little bit about that?
Ma'am, you talked about soldiers' wives looking after the families. I'll tell you 2 incidents, personal incidents. My wife has seen the death news of mine on the television twice.
Oh gosh.
Once when she was 8 months pregnant. The point which you made about they keep the family together. Ma'am, first time when she saw this news, I was a major in Lolab, same incident which we narrated about the cook. And a news came, another officer by similar name, he was killed in action there. So news ticker said Major KJ Singh, Rashtriya Rifles, Lolab. So she saw the news. She was 8 months pregnant. She was staying with her old parents. She did not tell anyone. Those days were the days of no mobiles and all. In next day morning, she was the first one to get up and go and stand at the gate, pick up the newspaper, because newspaper carried that headline. She hid that newspaper from her parents. In spite of her condition of being 8th month into pregnancy, she was more bothered about her old parents, the responsibility, jimmewari, imandari, wafadari. Now, second time is even more critical. Second time, I was commanding officer in Kashmir. An officer by similar name, KJ Singh. He again was killed in action. Again, the news came, Colonel KJ Singh killed in Jammu and Kashmir. I have given these details in my book. And this time, she was staying in the unit rear in Ranikhet, near Ranikhet place called Chobatia. And the whole battalion was in Kashmir. In Chobatia, that military station, there were Jawan's wives, JCO's wives and other officers' wives also staying in the same station. She got the news around about 11 in the night. The whole night with 2 children, one about 8 years old, one about 3 years old. She kept awake the whole night thinking, what will I do all alone by myself? And with these 2 children. Come the first light, this is the point I'm making. She was very clear, the officers' wives and other Jawans and JCO's wives would come to her place to console her, to sit with her. And she, as commanding officer's wife, did not want to be seen as a shattered woman. She got up, she dressed up, she combed her hair, and she was ready to face any visitor who comes. And face with full vigor, full confidence of being a commanding officer's wife who cannot waver under any circumstances. Ma'am, हमारे ladies are stronger than the soldiers. I always say, military wives are the strongest people on this planet. She was not bothered about her personal loss. She was more bothered about being a wife of a commanding officer. She can't be seen as a weak person because their husbands, the Jawans and the JCOs, were still in Kashmir fighting it out. So this is the type of role, the leadership role. It's not only limited to the people in uniform. Our ladies are the biggest support system with us.
And they get no medals for it.
Ma'am, I made it a point to give all these incidents in my book and bring it out, that what role they play in a soldier's life.
Well, what happened when she got to know that khabar to galat thi? He's alive.
Ma'am, her first reaction was, again I written in the book, she says, kisi na kisi ne to khoya hai. She had a horrible night. She says, if I feel happy now, that won't be correct. Because किसी माँ का बेटा, किसी wife का husband, किसी बच्चे का बाप, someone has gone. So she said it in these many words when I spoke to her. Okay, you are there, but someone is not there. For them, the loss is same. So, ma'am, फौजी ना देखने में बहुत लंबा चौड़ा मुच्छें, this, that, strong, रोबदार आवाज़. अंदर से ना, we are the softest people at heart. Because we've seen the death and life from very close by. We stay away from our families. We make friends with the local people. We listen to their problems. We understand how difficult situations could be in those terrain and weather, climatic conditions, the operational conditions, the line of control. So we understand the human relations. HR का जो department होता है ना in corporate world, हमारे से बड़ा HR कोई नहीं है.
You live it.
We live it every day. क्योंकि मैम उस कॉर्पोरेट का महीने के आखिर में 5 लाख 10 लाख ऊपर नीचे का नुकसान है. एम्प्लॉय ऑफ द मंथ आई ऑलवेज से, उनका तो महीने के बाद आता है एम्प्लॉय ऑफ द मंथ, फोटो लगती है. हमारा तो मैम एम्प्लॉय ऑफ द मोमेंट है. इफ आई डोंट डू माई जॉब प्रॉपरली माई बॉडी विल डाई. इफ ही डजंट डू हिज जॉब प्रॉपरली आई विल बी नो मोर. सो हमारा हिसाब किताब जिंदगी मौत में है.
ये जो बड़ी सिस्टम है इसके बारे में भी थोड़ा बताएं, बिकॉज दोज हु डोंट नो व्हाट इट मीन्स टू हैव अ बडी in the forge. Please tell us.
Ma'am, buddy system is basically for 2-3 reasons. One is you are never supposed to be fighting it out alone. Because if something happens to you, it may be a small wound, but you may lose your life by excessive bleeding. So there has to be a person next to you who would understand and see that you are hit. He will give you the first aid. He will evacuate to the nearest place, and thereafterwards the system will take care, ambulance, doctors and other things. So buddy system is for that reason. Second is, when you are firing, I may be concentrating in this direction, but there may be another enemy or terrorist coming from this direction or trying to engage me.
He has your back, your buddy.
The buddy has your back. He is supposed to keep a look around for everything. And similarly, I as his buddy would look around for everything. Every officer has a buddy. Every Jawan has a buddy. And these buddies are not that they change every day. We know each other's family background. We know each other बच्चों के कितने marks आए 10वीं में, कितने marks आए 7वीं में. So we live with each other. And this buddy system is basically for operational areas, field areas. But it cannot be discontinued in peace areas. Because जो कहते हैं ना intelligence building and buddy building, it cannot happen overnight. Continuity is a must. So even in peace areas, like my buddy used to admonish me so badly when I was a bachelor. सब बहुत खर्चा कर रहे हो. कल भी डिनर बाहर किया, आज भी डिनर बाहर किया, ऐसा थोड़ी चलेगा. कल को शादी होगी, बच्चे होंगे, थोड़ा पैसा बचा के रखो. And when I got married, I written in this book, in my book, Naik Ran Singh, very elderly man, he would tell my wife, सिलाई करना सीखो. पहले तो साहब बैचलर थे, ठीक है, दर्जी से करवा के लाते थे, भी आप करिए, ठीक कीजिए इसको.
So when you, कल साहब ना, जैन साहब आप retire हो गए हैं, you've come out of the forge, you're living the life of a civilian. You bring those, you've lived those values, you've learned those values, lived those values, taught those values. When you come to civilian life, how difficult is it to adjust to a different set of people who may not have the same kind of value system which you've been used to living in cantonments, living in those non-family stations. अब आप यहाँ पे आ गए हैं जहाँ पर people don't have that kind of buddy system, help system, value system which you're accustomed to. How does that adjustment take place?
Since we all come from the society,
Sir.
And society is of all civilians, my father is civilian, my wife is civilian, my children are civilian. So we are aware of the society per se, but the point which you are making, I am enjoying my life, I am enjoying the civilian environment. मैं सब्जी लेने जाता हूँ, थैला पकड़ के. I love that part of life. But one thing which I, at times which I don't appreciate is, देख लेंगे, कर लेंगे, हो जाएगा, परसों बात करना, नर्सों को बात करना. Either it is yes or no. It
You're
has
a
to be
doer.
No. You are a doer. You need to tell me now कि सर हो सकता है या नहीं हो सकता है. ये नहीं सर देखेंगे सर ऐसे करता हूँ मैं थोड़ा चेक करता हूँ फिर परसों मेरे को फ़ोन करना. So this is where I feel we are losing those 3 days of man-hours. Whereas I am used to working, if I sit in my office for 1 hour additional, my clerk, my PA, my runner, my driver, my buddy, and not to talk about the cook and the wife who are waiting at home, everyone has wasted that 1 hour. Because of my inefficiency, I could not complete my work by 1 o'clock. I sat till 2. Everyone's 1 man hour has been gone down the drain. So I put myself under pressure to finish my work in time so that my clerk can go back to his house, play with his children. My driver can, after dropping me, can get back, park his vehicle and go and relax if he's staying in a barrack, or go to his family. Because ma'am, every minute is precious.
Well, I hope our viewers also learn the values of discipline and a more regulated kind of a life where your productivity is important, not just for yourself and your family, but to the society also. Thank you so much, General Dhillon, for being part of the podcast once again. As always, I learn so much every time that you're on the podcast.
Thank you, ma'am. And thank you, everyone. Jai Hind.
Thank you for watching or listening to this episode. Do like or subscribe on whichever channel you have seen this. Namaste. Jai Hind. Click here to watch the previous episodes.